What is going on, everybody? How's everybody doing today? I'm doing fine, just in case you were wondering. Seems like that's my intro on every video I do lately. So, the theme, the talk, the subject of today's video um, is the swirl. And I don't mean that in a degrading way. It's kind of, I don't know, the kind, the connotation is kind of on a sexual type of basis, and that's not the way I meant it when I posted the screenshot. Um, when, how would I put this? When there's an attraction to somebody, no matter what it is, it's kind of natural. Like if you ask a gay person why they're gay, why a man is attracted to another man, or conversely, why a woman is attracted to another woman, the answer, the response will usually be, ever since I was a kid. Like that's just who I am. Like I played with Barbie dolls instead of G.I. Joe. Like that's just their DNA, so to speak. It's the same thing with my attraction to black women. I've had an attraction to black women since I could remember, like way back in the 70s when I was young, before I was even a teenager, actually. So, and I married a black woman back in 1996, and I have a mixed child. So there's not, how would I put it? There's not, there are some people out there, especially here in the South, that like to experiment. And I say that in quotes because I've heard that before from black women. You know, it's like, oh, are you just trying to meet me so you can experiment? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, that's a thing. Like there are a lot of men who would be embarrassed to be seen with me, but they want to get with me. And I'm like, I don't understand that. That's not my makeup. Never has been. I've never in my life been embarrassed to be with a black woman. In fact, just the opposite. I'm very proud, very, very proud to be with a beautiful black woman. So to get back to the natural look of a black woman, not today's black woman, because today's black woman, they've changed a lot since when I grew up. Back in the 70s, they just had afros and they just look really nice. When I first started having an attraction or knew that I had an attraction to black women, it was back when this show, like, well, there are different shows. So, and it started out with Janet Jackson. I think it started out with Janet Jackson. It could have been before that. I don't know. But my best recollection, it was Janet Jackson back in the day. Because she was on a TV show, Good Times, and she wasn't popular. Like nobody really knew. I mean, they knew her brother. They knew that she was part of the Jackson 5 at that point, but it wasn't, how would I put it? It wasn't, and we were about the same age. I think she was probably a couple years younger than me. And so at 10, 11 years old, I'm watching the show and she comes on my screen and I'm like, oh, there's an attraction there. There's definitely an attraction. So this is her back in the day. And I just saw her as beautiful. Like that was just a natural thing for me. There were other shows along the way. Get Christy Love was one of them. And I really, I think I was a teenager by that time. I was probably 12, 13 years old. I'm going to say about 12 years old. Get Christy Love was a show that so to be fair, she was a detective. She was a police detective who knew karate. Best way I could describe that show. And she would go and do all these kicks and karate chops and all that stuff with the bad guy. I didn't know about any of the show. Like I can't remember one show. I can't remember the theme of any one show. I watched that show specifically for her. I just like to watch her. You know, she had the bell bottom, she had the natural afro going on. She's just beautiful. and I would watch a show specifically for her. Another show that came around about that same time that I was a teenager was Tony, Orlando, and Dawn. And Tony, Orlando, and Dawn had two black females on there. Thelma Hopkins on to the left there, I had a thing for. And yes, at that time, Tony Orlando was pretty popular with his music and all that stuff. But I didn't watch the show necessarily for the music or the comedy skits or anything like that. I watched the show for Thelma Hopkins. I watched the show so I could look at her. And as I said before, it's just like this natural type of an attraction thing that I had at the time and always have had. And through the years, true enough, into my late teens and early 20s and all that stuff, and probably into my mid to late 20s, I've dated white women before. It wasn't, how would I put it? It's not that I didn't appreciate them. It's not that I didn't, love them at the time that we were dating. And it's not that I was repulsed by them. But if we were walking down the street and I saw a black woman, like my head would turn. It was just a natural thing for me to check out a black woman before it would be for a white woman. A white woman with a tan would get still a little bit more attention. The least of which would be a redhead. A blonde, I might look, but yeah. A brunette and a brunette with a tan, yes, I would definitely be a head turner for me. Hispanic girl, Puerto Rican, stuff like that, it would be a head turner for me. But the main attraction is always going to be a black woman, and as natural as possible. And let me bring up what I'm talking about, natural. That to me is just gorgeous. That to me, that exemplifies what I'm talking about. When I've had discussions with black women in the past, besides the fact that they ask me if I'm experimenting, what do you like about a black woman? And I say to them, it's the natural beauty that I see. It's everything. It's the head structure, like the skull is shaped differently, and it's just more of a flow to me. The chin and the lips and the mouth and the nose and the eyes and the forehead. Like everything about a black woman, I just think is absolutely gorgeous. This picture specifically, that is just the epitome of beautiful to me. And so I can't put a finger on it. I can't say why that is. I don't have words to describe the reason. I just know inherently that it's a natural attraction. When you see somebody like this, when I see somebody like this, I just think, oh my God, like for me, that would be a head turner. If I saw this woman, I think this is AI. I'm not sure. But if I saw that woman walking down the street, I would just be in awe. I would just stare. I would just be, I would be all over myself. And so that being said, I'm going to also say that today's black woman is different for a lot of different reasons. One of the things that how would I put it? One of the changes, if you will, that has happened with black women today is they're not looking like this. Like this is back in the 70s. So besides the clothing, the bell bottoms, which I think were really hot and all that stuff, and the tight fit at the top and then the loose at the bottom and all that stuff, just fit them to a T. Look at that. That is just what I talk about with my attraction, is this natural look. You know, it's the afro. You don't see weave, and you don't see extensions, and you don't see all of that fake stuff. You don't see the fake eyelashes. Although back in the late 60s, early 70s, fake eyelashes were a thing, but they kind of faded out, and now they're back with a vengeance. And so you don't, this is a black and white picture. So you're not seeing the makeup, right? You don't need the makeup. Black women don't need makeup. A little touch up here and there, maybe a little lipstick, maybe a little eyeliner, and that's about it. But you don't need any makeup to be beautiful. You're beautiful already. Now, if you're Oprah, and if you've ever seen Oprah without makeup, yes, that woman definitely definitely needs makeup. But overall, look at this. This is just gorgeous. And these women were thin back then. These women were looking nice back then. Nowadays, it's just like cellulite, and it's just like this fatty food, the McDonald's and Burger King and Taco Bell and Subway and all these different places that just feed all this unhealthiness. When I lived in Jamaica, and I have a long history there. When I lived in Jamaica, the natural food thing is still there. It's starting to transition in the last probably 8-10 years. It's starting to transition to where it's junk food. But all the natural food, you got breadfruit and ackee, and you have, pop chow, you have all of these natural foods besides all the, the fish and the chicken, which is prevalent, all that stuff, and goat. And goat has no fat on it. Like, it's very, very lean meat. And so, if you look back in the 70s, in any place in the world, people by and large were thinner, but black women specifically were thinner than they are now. Now it's become a thing to be, what do they say? BBW, big black woman, or beautiful black woman, I think it is. I don't think there's anything beautiful about being big. Like, I mean, besides the health issues, which is a big thing, right? Health issues aside, it's just not attractive. You can't look in the mirror. You can't take off your clothes and look in the mirror naked and say, oh yeah, ooh, girl, you look good. You can't do that. And different strokes for different folks. There's a lot of men out there that like a thicker woman, big boned, if you will. That's not me. This is what this is what I was attracted to from the very beginning, and I still am. Unfortunately, when I go out into public, especially here in Metro Atlanta, I'm not seeing this very often. Like, this is exception, not the rule. It might be every 10 black women that walk by that one looks like this. And this has always been my attraction. It always has and always will be. I can't define it. It's like anything, it when you see it. But as I said, I don't like, look, I'm on a good day, 165, 170. And the woman should never weigh more than me. I should be able to take my woman across a threshold, pick her up and take her across a threshold. And the women out there now, I couldn't do that with. They're like linebackers. Like I said, to each his own, but this is what my attraction has always been. This is what I got attracted to first. This is what I got attracted to first. This is what I got attracted to first. This is what I find beautiful. And that's not a BBW. That's just not. These are not BBWs, back in the day. My thing is that, and I'm not a hypocrite either. I'm 64 years old, and, I'm in good shape at my age. I'm probably a 32 in the waist. And when I was 20, I was a 28, 29 in the waist. So I've only gained a couple of inches over the years, period. Now, true enough, my work is very active. And so for that reason, I'm very grateful. But hello, there's gym memberships, like, I don't know, I'm just saying. When I got married, and well, I'm going to say this. Um, the attraction that I had with my then wife was that thin, um, petite. Yes, petite. I like petite. Natural-ish type of woman. She looked good with no makeup. She would wear makeup because it's just like a thing. It's kind of a false flag, really. I'm not, all the things that a woman does nowadays to make herself more beautiful can't. The weave and the wigs and the extensions and all that stuff don't make you look more beautiful. You could be like India Arie and just wear a do-rag on your head and you still look beautiful because it's all your face and your bone structure and everything that I said before. The fake eyelashes, what I call fake, what do I call them? Face fans. Face fans, they don't make you look more beautiful. The lipstick and all the rouge and all this stuff doesn't make you look more beautiful. It does not. I'm just saying, like it just, like I said, each to his own. And I guess there are some people that would like that, would appreciate that. But the only time that I ever had to deal with that back in the day when I did photography, there are some females that were very, very good at putting their makeup on, and it enhanced their look because it was so little. It wasn't, they didn't make their look by their makeup. They enhanced their look with their makeup. So that's kind of, I guess, the mantra that I'm on is if you can enhance your look, then by all means. But you should be making your look. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. So when we got together, I just saw her. We were actually co-workers. I worked at a property management company, and she did too. What is going on with my green screen? I worked for a property management company, and she was assistant manager, and I was a maintenance supervisor at the time. And she looked really nice. Like and this is, I'm gonna bring her up here. Hold on a second, if I can manipulate. This is her back when we got married, and she's just beautiful. Like, yeah, she has some makeup on because that was our wedding day, but she was thin, she was petite, she looked naturally beautiful. She had her own hair. This is not a weave, this is not a wig, this is not extensions or anything like that. She had it straight, she had it relaxed, as they call it, but it wasn't fake. Like there wasn't anything fake about her. Well, 20 something years later, yeah, her personality ended up being not the same person that I married, but I'm just saying, like that's not what I would have been attracted to. Had she been in any way fake, I wouldn't have, again, personality goes a long way. I've been with Black women before who just have a really bad aura about them, a bad personality, or they have a negative vibe or something like that. So personality matters, but it's always that attraction that you have first that's going to bring you in and decide if personality matters, and by the end of our marriage, she changed and she became uppity. And for that reason, we ended up getting a divorce and all that stuff. And I don't hate her. There's somebody else out there that will accept her just the way she is. So, no harm, no foul. And we ended up with a, good looking son out of that. This is my son, and he is now 27. He's 27 years old. And so he could pass for anything, really. Whether he claims being Black, I don't know. Whether he claims being white, I don't know. I really don't. He could be Puerto Rican. He could be anything. But I have no regrets about that because, this is what I ended up with at the end of the day. Again, it's all what your attraction happens to be. As I said before, a redhead, a very pale redhead would be my last choice in the world. But there are guys out there that go nutso over a redhead, a pale redhead. Like I'm just saying. So as I said, everybody has their own thing. Everybody has their own attraction and all that stuff. But that's just been my attraction. This has been my attraction my whole life. Like I don't see that ever changing. That's my natural attraction. because this is definitely beautiful. And you can disagree with me. I feel like, again, my channel is based, my videos are based on the younger set, from 18, 20 years old up to about 35, 40, because at 64, I have a lot more knowledge, a lot more life experience, and a whole lot more self-reflection. And what I can say is this. If you are younger and you have a natural attraction to somebody, getting back to this experimentation type of thing, don't discount that. Don't ever be embarrassed to be with somebody. Don't ever feel like you're downgrading yourself or stooping to a certain level or something like that, because there's a lot of there's a lot of negative press out there about the Black community in general. And I don't buy into that. There's just as much bad press about white people as there is about Black people, but you don't get that feedback in a predominantly white world. The only feedback you see is a negative vibe on the Black community. And I've been immersed in the Black community almost all my life, especially the time I was in Jamaica. Yes, there are white Jamaicans in Jamaica that are native, but the predominant people are Black, and I was immersed in that for over 20 years. So I'm just saying, you'll have your own take on it, and I would appreciate any type of feedback or any type of comments that you leave. I would appreciate any type of, especially if you've had interracial relationships before, no matter what that interracial relationship looked like. Was there any pushback? Was there any negative associated with your relationship, whether it be social or personal or family related or anything like that whatsoever? Like, I never had an issue with her family. Never. She had a big family. She had 3 brothers, and her mom and her dad and her stepdad and all her cousins and everything else, and we'll get together for Christmas and get together for New Year's and get together for family reunion and all that stuff. Never had an issue. All very good, straight, honest people. And so I never ran into anything, really, honestly. On occasion, we would go on vacation, we would go somewhere, and I think she made stuff up. She would see somebody, usually a Black man, looking at us a certain way, and she would look back and she would push that narrative forward, like, oh, he's hating on us because you're with me and all that stuff. But I never looked for it, so I never found it. But, like, I'm just curious how you guys, if anybody watching has had this type of experience before, negative, positive, or otherwise. I'd be interested to know. Put it in the comment section down below. I'm going to come up with another, hold on a second, drink of water. My cup is green, so my green screen, yeah, tricky. I'm going to come up with another video pretty soon on another topic, that which I don't know yet. Like, I didn't know I was going to do this topic, but it kind of popped in my brain. And I'm like, yeah, I need to make a video on this. But if you have any ideas for any other videos, definitely put it in the comment section. As I said, at 64 years old, I have a lot of life experience, a lot of different things that I've done in my life, and I have a lot of opinions. Duh. It's my life. So yeah, put it in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts are. And until next time, peace out. See you guys in the next one. Anyway, have a great day.